So, when you hear the word ASEAN, what pops into your head? Probably, leaders shaking hands, big economic summits, a lot of political talk. But what if I told you there's a much deeper story going on? A story about people, about culture, and about finding a shared feeling of belonging. Okay, let's dive into this quest for a common soul across one of the most diverse regions on the entire planet. I mean, this is really the heart of the matter, isn't it? It's not about having the same passport or a trade deal. It's about what some people call a we feeling. How on earth do you create a real sense of community across 10 nations with wildly different histories, languages, and cultures? That's exactly it. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations is tackling one of its most ambitious projects ever, literally building a common identity. And let's be clear, this is not just some branding exercise. It's a very deliberate, very real effort to create a genuine connection among all its people. But, and this is a big but, this is way easier said than done. You always hear that phrase, unity and diversity with ASEAN, and that diversity, well, that's the core challenge. Let's break down just how huge of a challenge we're talking about. Just think about this for a second. In this one region, you have everything from constitutional monarchies to socialist republics. All the major world religions are living side by side. You've got massive economic powerhouses right next to developing nations, and every single one has its own unique story. Trying to create a single identity out of that mix? Wow, that is a monumental task. And this quote from Professor Dewi Fortuna Anwar just hits the nail on the head. It really gets to the internal struggle. A lot of these countries are, understandably, still focused on their own nation building. So the whole trick is figuring out how to balance that national pride with this new, bigger sense of being part of a region. Now, check this out. This number, 1/3, what does it mean? Well, get this. 1/3 of the entire ASEAN population is young people. We're talking over 220 million youths. And that, right there, is why this whole quest for a shared identity isn't just some academic idea. It's absolutely crucial for the future of the entire region. Okay, so how do you even start a project this massive? Well, it turns out ASEAN actually has a blueprint. There's an official document they adopted back in 2020 called The Narrative of ASEAN Identity, and it pretty much lays out the whole game plan. All right, this definition is super important. The key words here are social construct. It's telling us that this ASEAN identity isn't something you just find, it's something you have to actively build. And you build it using two key ingredients, what they call constructed values and inherited values. And this right here is the heart of the strategy. So on one side, you have these constructed values. These are the modern kind of top-down principles, like the famous ASEAN way. But then on the other side, you have the inherited values. These are the deep, bottoms-up cultural roots. Things like community, harmony, stuff that's been part of the culture for centuries. The whole idea is to blend these two together perfectly. At the end of the day, this blueprint is all about creating a shared story. It's a guide to help 660 million people see that they have a common past, and maybe even more important, a shared future. But having a blueprint is one thing. How do you actually bring it to life? Well, for inspiration, a lot of folks are looking to a global cultural phenomenon that totally changed how the world sees an entire country. Hallyu. You know it as the Korean wave. I mean, this is the billion-dollar question that K-pop and K-dramas seem to have cracked, right? Hallyu has done more for Korea's image and national pride than decades of traditional diplomacy ever could. So the thinking is, could ASEAN maybe learn from that model to build its own cultural connection? Now, there's a big misconception that the Korean wave was some master plan cooked up in a government office. But experts who've studied this say, that's not really the story. It was largely an organic, bottom-up movement. It grew out of intense competition, a relentless strive for perfection, and this explosion of creative freedom. Sure, government support helped later on, but it didn't create the magic. So the lessons here are pretty clear. It's not about trying to force some official identity on people. It's about creating an environment where amazing, high-quality, and authentic culture can just grow. It means using technology to reach young people, telling stories that everyone can relate to, and building a system where the government and private companies both help creativity happen without trying to control it.
So you take all those lessons, and what's the big goal? Well, the ultimate ambition is to spark a unique cultural force that they're calling the A-wave. So how do you actually turn that idea into action?
Well, experts have laid out some really smart, practical steps. First, create a joint textbook. Get kids all across the region learning about their shared history and values from day one. Second, start an ASEAN Youth Volunteer Corps. Just imagine young people from all 10 countries working together on community projects. I mean, that's how you build a real we consciousness. And third, create an institute dedicated to seriously studying and promoting the region's incredible shared culture. And look, this isn't just a wishful thinking. They've got clear ways to track if any of this is actually working. Success is going to be measured by what they call the 3 A's. First is awareness. Do people even know they're part of ASEAN? Second, relevance. Do they feel like it actually benefits their daily lives? And third, appreciation. Do they genuinely value being part of this community? So the grand vision here, it's not about top-down propaganda. It's about sparking an organic, people-first cultural wave, one that's built on the incredible, authentic stories and creative energy from all across the region, to show the world, and each other, what it really means to be ASEAN. And really, that's the question I want to leave you with. The Korean wave told a story of resilience, of creativity, of modernity. So if an ASEAN wave finally rises, what story is it going to tell? A story of unity and diversity, of ancient traditions meeting hyper-modern innovation? Well, that is the story that is still being written.